You are listening to Radio Dil live on the web at www.radiodil.com, on the phone at 732-800-1008, and on mobile apps around the world. And up next, Swaranjali, Sanjeev ke saath, Sangeet ka Surila Safar.
स्वरांजलि संजीव के साथ संगीत का सुरीला सफर। स्वरांजलि।
कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी। कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी। कैसे तुझको।
Radio Dil listeners, Sanjeev Ramabhadran here. You are tuned in to Swaranjali, संजीव के साथ संगीत का सुरीला सफर, जिसमें हम पेश करते हैं अलग अलग रंग के, अलग अलग ढंग के पॉपुलर गीत जो सभी के सभी शास्त्रीय संगीत पर आधारित हैं. We are playing the popular melodies based on the classical traditions of the subcontinent, which takes us into the details of Rag Sangeet, Rag Tal of all over north, south, east, west. And occasionally we have interesting diversions from this modus operandi. And today we are taking some time out to actually shift gears and talk about a very fun, interesting project that I have been involved in recent times. A very, very compelling project indeed. Some of you know that this year is the 100th birth anniversary of that phenomenon called Muhammad Rafi Sahib. And there is definitely a Muhammad Rafi connection here. Although those of you listening to that first song, that snippet of that first song, may have been racking your brain saying, where have I heard that before? Where have I heard the voice before? Well, you could be pardoned for thinking that this is a classic from the golden era of Rafi Sahib. That is indeed the intent, but that voice you heard was not Rafi Sahib's, it was mine, and it's a song that I recently rendered. And as I said, it's a very interesting project. The title of today's show is Kaise Tujhko, original in a classic mold. And it gives me a chance to introduce my co-collaborator on this project, of just a really, really interesting musical mind. Like me, he has a professional career away from music, but music has been his passion forever and ever, as long as he can remember. So we, again, the Muhammad Rafi connection is a very, very powerful one, and we have been running in some similar circles for a long time, and finally our paths overlapped and had a chance to do some very interesting work here that we're sharing with you today. Again, Kaise Tujhko, original in a classic mold. And with that, I'm very happy to welcome onto Swaranjali from the Bay Area, aficionado and connoisseur and composer all rolled into one, Menon Ramakrishna Urf R.M. Menon. Menon ji, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sanjeev bhai, thank you so much for such a nice intro, and it was a great project, and I'm looking forward to this show episode.
Absolutely. So, we're going to get under the hood here, because what Kaise Tujhko does, it provides a very interesting case study into some of the thought processes that would have gone into making songs of that the golden era that we talk about. All the things that you had to peel back, and the inner workings of your mind. Lots of parallels to how some of the music directors and musicians of that day would have thought about a song like this. But before we go into that, Menonji, you have a predilection for interesting musical projects. Your musical persuasion has seen you do some work, even well before this, with some very high profile artist, but with, as I said, with a different thought process behind it. So I'd love to have you just give our listeners a little flavor of that, and how your mind has been working and what that has resulted in.
Oh, thank you so much, Sanjeev, once again. So I guess I have always been attached with the meaningful lyrics and melodious songs of golden era, like you say, right, mid 50s to
Hmm.
60s and even 70s. And that has been my kind of passion. I used to sing quite a bit in college and whatnot, but lately I've for the past maybe a decade or so, I've been focused more on writing lyrics, but mostly on composing songs, right? So the project that I did before this was an album called Dhanuk, where I collaborated with Udit Narayan ji, Javed Ali ji,
क्या
Mahalakshmi
बात है.
Iyer ji. इन सब ये बड़े बड़े लोगों के साथ काम करने का मौका मिला। काफी स्टार स्ट्रक था, तो कुछ गलतियां भी हुई उसमें, लेकिन बहुत मजा आया। लेकिन उन सब में कॉमन थ्रेड ये था कि मैं मेलोडियस सॉन्ग्स लिखना चाहता था, और मैं जो लिखना चाहता था वो मीनिंगफुल लिरिक्स लिखना चाहता था। वो चिकन
Hmm.
करी, बटन करी, वो सब जो उसे कुछ लिरिक्स आते हैं वैसे मुझे, मतलब उसकी अपनी जगह है, बिल्कुल है, लेकिन वो मेरा स्टाइल नहीं है। आई वांट टू राइट समथिंग मीनिंगफुल एंड डीप एंड एट लीस्ट होपफुली दैट्स माय इंटेंशन, राइट?
And
सो
all of
दैट्स काइंड
these are all labors of love, right? Because you don't have, as we said, your professional career has nothing to do with music. You are established in that field, but this is just your love, your passion, and you have been prepared to, invest whatever you need to invest and push yourself. This is not through any other connection or anything, or the in
नो नो,
उससे
एब्सोल्युटली,
इसमें सिलसिले में नहीं.
एब्सोल्युटली उसके सिलसिले में, नॉट जस्ट इन्वेस्टिंग टाइम एंड मनी। आई विल गिव यू वन एग्जांपल। व्हेन आई went from Kerala to Mumbai to record Udit Narayan ji for the first time, I did not even know whether he's going to show up. And he was
Mm,
not showing up for 2 hours or something. And I thought it will not work out, but I just took a chance and he showed up, and, he recorded 2 songs. So, yeah,
that's
so it's a lot
fantastic.
of
Because I mean,
effort, but it's just pure passion, right? I mean,
no.
you are I would say, an epitome of that. So you
Well,
understand what that
it
means.
just but when you get into the grip of music, it's very hard to get out of it, regardless of what your professional calling may be. And that's kind of what
Absolutely.
we find ourselves. And what you mentioned about folks, the big names you mentioned, Udit ji, Mahalakshmi Iyer ji, Javed Ali ji,
Javed Ali ji.
they have these are professionals in the industry. They are running from place to place, and they're finding bandwidth, and you being able to squeeze into the calendar and get them to come in and deliver what you need to. That itself takes a lot of resolve and patience, and I don't know. It's the kind of thing that it's not made for everybody. Everybody's not made for that, or everybody doesn't have the fortitude to see those kinds of projects through. So that's a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that
And where
compliment
can
of yours.
well,
Yes.
absolutely. And so again, you have all of Menon's previous work. For those of you radio the listeners, you can go to Menon's Melodies, where you can hear all of these, all the songs that he mentioned. His recent album before this, Dhanuk,
Yes.
where all the songs are there on his YouTube channel, Menon's Melodies, and um, we similarly then when we talk about Kaise Tujhko, this song whose snippet you just heard at the beginning, there too, to hear the whole song Kaise Tujhko, it's there on Menon's Melodies YouTube channel, so please check out. We will be playing bits of the song, and we'll, with any luck, we'll get through the song in its entirety today, but you can hear that song at your pleasure on the YouTube channel. It is also on Spotify, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
but
it is.
but before we again, I'll just give you a little bit of a recap of the Mukra here. And as you mentioned, the melodious songs, that the beginning itself is it's an indication of what is to follow. But uh, we might as well, before digging into the song itself, the background, the motivation for this particular project, in your words.
Yes. So as you mentioned, this is Rafi Saab's 100th birth anniversary, and so I wanted to create some songs, and I want to do something different in the sense that I want to create a song with Rafi Saab, like for him, right? Designed to bring out all his elements.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the main motivation for this song. And in terms of background, if you want to go into the details, we can go into like the lyricist and all that. I don't know whether you want to talk about it,
We
but
will definitely we have to, because again, so this is the brainchild of Menonji, but there is a team behind this. Aside from the two of us, there is a sizable team that has gone into putting this together. We will definitely go into talking about them. To start with, the noted writer Abhishek Shukla ji is the lyricist for this, and what exquisite poetry, that itself, jo loves hai, jo alfaz hai uske, that's a that in itself is such a big part of this, and we will talk about that. But even आपके दिमाग में क्या था इसके लिए? रफ़ी साहब के तो बहुत चाहने वाले हैं आप, और हम भी, but this is so your thought was, I mean, in fact, you've had an interesting set of thoughts, even those that didn't make it all the way into an album. Your mind is always at work, sort of playing what if, right? To the tune of, okay, well, here is a famous song of Mukesh ji that is known the world over, and it's in everybody's head. Had Rafi Sahab been given that song to sing, it wouldn't have been the same tune. It would have been a different setting.
yes,
How might that have been done? That's one example of that. But just to give you guys, listeners out there, a flavor of how Manage's mind kind of works, that's something that he's toyed with. He's done lots of stuff like that. So that sets up this particular song, Kaise Tujhko, in this centenary year of Rafi Saab. So, let's dig into that one a little bit. Rafi Saab, in the Rafi Saab mold, how did your mind go about taking this sort of a problem apart?
yeah. So I guess I have so one exercise that I've been doing, because I'm an engineer also, right? So I think like an engineer
Mm-hmm.
mostly, right? So the way the engineer works, one way of working through an engineering problem is to constrain yourself and play with only one variable so that you
Mm-hmm.
are able to make progress, right? Like for
Yes.
example, if you want to learn how to write गीत, जैसे फिल्मी गीत आपको लिखने हैं, so
Mm-hmm.
one simple way is that you can just take an existing song that you like and add an antara, right? So
Mm-hmm.
similarly, if you want to learn how to compose, then one very interesting thing is that you fix all the parameters by choosing one existing song,
Mm-hmm.
and you change the tune of that song, which means your meter is the same. Maybe you want to change the meaning of the song or whatever. I like to keep that also the same, right?
This is
So
an interesting thing, improvising within, or creating within constraints, right? Because too many
true.
options or unbounded creativity also, there are limits to it's the satisfaction that you derive from that. So even if we about classical music की मिसाल लेते हैं, तो you see that, okay, there are rules. एक किसी एक राग को लेते हैं, तो within the rules of the rag, within the structure of the rag that's defined by certain notes, that is those are your boundaries, and you create within that. So what you speak to is a similar. It's actually very helpful. Otherwise, you can get lost.
Yes, yes, and you will never get depth, right? You will only get
Mm-hmm.
breadth if you are all over the place, right? Like
Right.
so,
Right.
the idea is that you constrain yourself and then you explore deep into that
Wow.
concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
क्या बात
हाँ,
है,
तो
क्या
इस
बात है.
सॉन्ग में हम लोग बोल सकते हैं शायद अब आई गेस कि ये कौन से मीटर पे था. दिस इज अ गुड टाइम और यू वांट टू प्ले द
And
इंट्रो?
in fact, so मैं मुखड़ा फिर से गुनगुनाता हूँ. अगर
जी
I will deliberately, without the words, I will say da 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 na da 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 da
क्या
da.
बात.
And so that, as you said, एक वजन है, एक बहर है.
जी
So, and we could open up the phone lines and ask listeners, hey, can you call in and tell us, a song that fits this sort of beher, just the mukra. That will take a little time. So
यस
maybe I don't mind if we do a little bit of a reveal now, Menanji, if you want to tell
श्योर.
folks which song you had in mind for that beher.
यस यस सो बहर और मीटर जिसको कुछ लोग बोलते हैं, तो ये सॉन्ग इज द सेम मीटर एज हुस्न वाले तेरा जवाब नहीं, विच इज अ वेरी फेमस रफी साहब ने का गाया हुआ,
क्या बात है.
राजेंद्र कुमार जी के ऊपर फिल्माया हुआ रोमांटिक सॉन्ग है. आई थिंक उसमें आशा पारिक है, मुझे याद नहीं है अभी.
जी, जी, जी। जैस
अ,
फिल्म घराना फ़िल्म है, और रफ़ी
अच्छा
साहब का म्यूज़िक है, एंड
जी बिल्कुल.
शकील साहब के बोल हैं। तो इफ़ आई वर टू टेक दोज़, फ़िलहाल वो ट्यून तो जो अभी आज का जो गाना है, उसी ट्यून में
हाँ
अगर
जी
मैं वो इसी बोलों को बिठाऊँ,
जी
हुस्न वाले तेरा जवाब नहीं,
क्या बात है।
कोई तुझसा नहीं हजारों में. Now this is not the tune of Husn Wale, right? But this just for demonstration purposes.
Correct.
आज इस गाने के बोल हैं, कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी. And once we pull this out, already I think many listeners in their imagination will start thinking about, oh wow, this brings back some memories, and already what sort of tricks Rafi Saab would pull out of his bag for different pieces of this are already running through people's head. And indeed, we had a lot of intense discussion as this song was created on what we wanted to inject at various phrases. We'll never be finished if we start talking about that. I'm going to suggest, Menon, that we go on and play the first antara of this and then resume our discussion. That work for you?
Yes, let's do that.
All right, let's do that.
मुझको जब तक न तेरी दीद हुई, क्या कहूँ मैं जो दिल की हालत थी, मर मिटा मैं के तुझ पे मरना था, जिंदगी एक जरा सी मोहलत थी, तेरे जलवों ने कर दिया रोशन मेरी तकदीर का सितारा भी, कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम.
क्या बात है संजू जी, क्या गाया
Thank you.
आपने.
Thank you. Thank you. Radio the listeners, again, you're tuned into Swaranjali, Sanjeev ke saath Sangeet ka Surila Safar. Today's episode is a special one. That voice you heard was that of yours truly, doing his best to pay tribute to Muhammad Rafi Saab through an original composition created by my guest on today's show, composer R.M. Menon of the Bay Area. And we are having some dialogue, sort of just chatting and recapping and reliving some of the interesting, exciting moments, of exhilarating moments of trying to create something like this. So, Menon ji, welcome again to the show. And this was the first antara of this song, written by poet Abhishek Shukla ji. And we talked earlier about what a team we had to assemble. And I mean, you might as well, Abhishek ji se shuru kare, so that's even, a
बिल्कुल
very good
बिल्कुल.
place to start.
जी बिल्कुल, इससे पहले कि अभिषेक जी बोले, आपने जो वो गाया ट्यून में हुस्न वाले को, द द वे एक्चुअली सॉन्ग वाज क्रिएटेड वाज द अदर वे अराउंड. आई
Mm.
एक्चुअली क्रिएटेड द ट्यून बेस्ड ऑन हुस्न वाले के लिरिक्स पर ही मैंने दूसरा ट्यून किया. तो
Right.
अगर आप हुस्न वाले को इसी में गाएंगे ना, वैसे ट्यून बनाया, पूरा बना हुआ था वो ट्यून दो अंतरों
Mm-hmm.
का.
Mm-hmm.
आई डिडंट हैव फोर अंतरास, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स आई I had the fortune of having met Abhishek Shukla ji, and I am a big fan of his. He's all over there in Rekta. He's one of the most promising poets, and his specialty is he teaches Urdu as well
Kya
as
baat hai.
he is a ghazal. बहुत ही जबरदस्त गजल लिखते हैं वो. तो मैं उनके पास जाने से पहले मुझे थोड़ा सा ये डर जरूर था कि
Mm-hmm.
कहीं वो बहुत ही खतरनाक उर्दू के वर्ड, मीनिंग लाइक उर्दू के जो वर्ड जो आम जनता जैसे आप और हम हैं, हम नहीं
Yes.
जानते हैं वो, तो क्या वो कर सकेंगे, वो गीत की तरह सिंपल लिख सकेंगे. तो मैंने उनको ये मीटर दिया कि ये हुस्न वाले का मीटर है, इसी मीटर पे आपको एग्जैक्टली इस मीटर पे लिखना है,
Mm-hmm.
लेकिन आपको उसे सिंपल वर्ड्स में लिखना है. और आपका टॉपिक वही है कि एक आशिक अपनी महबूबा को की तारीफ कर रहा है, राइट,
Kya
दैट
baat
इज
hai.
द.
Mm-hmm.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी, तो ये
Mm-hmm.
था टॉपिक. और उन्होंने उसको और मैंने, क्योंकि मैं थोड़ा सा म्यूजिक के मामले में लालची आदमी हूँ, तो मेरे पास दो अंतरा थे, लेकिन ट्यून दो अंतरा की थी. लेकिन मैंने उनसे बोला कि आप चार अंतरा लिखिए, मैं शायद तीन ले लूंगा उसमें से या ऐसा कुछ. तो उन्होंने बोला कोई बात नहीं, और फिर उन्होंने लिख दिया.
क्या बात है. So at that
बहुत
time then you had tunes also for दो अंतरे के लिए the धुन
जी
बनाई गई थी.
जी
Okay. So so right, so, and if the song itself actually has, if you look at it, two of the antras are similarly tuned. We'll say in the end result is that they're not identical, but they're very similarly tuned. But the other two, the second and the fourth, have different tunes. मुखड़े
राइट
और then the last one जो मुखड़े पे आने का जो तरीका है वो भी अनोखा है.
डिफरेंट
तो
है
that's
जी
this is just so we'll get to all those parts, but to back to the previous point about husn wale, for those who may not immediately recall the song, just a snippet, right?
जी
The original of husn wale goes husn wale tera jawab nahi कोई तुझसा नहीं हजारों में हुस्न वाले तेरा जवाब नहीं. And that provided you not melodic but a lyrical or sort of metrical framework
यस
to launch this new conception of yours.
करेक्ट दैट इज हाउ इट स्टार्टेड एंड pretty much all the melodies came as taking shower or something usually. So
And
that's when I think when you are doing something without thinking too much, that's when your, I guess, creativity flows, right? So that's
absolutely, absolutely. But you just I've never heard of. I guess composers, again. We talk about how this is an interesting case study into how we're a bit like archaeologists in this respect, right? That how would those folks have done their composing, based on our own attempt to do it. Uh,
correct.
right, or archaeologists or forensic scientists or whatever you want to say, but yeah, I suppose there were some that say, okay, it's 9 a.m. and I'm going to my sitting room to take out my harmonium and compose some songs, and others say, yeah,
Mm.
I was walking to the panwala, and on the way I heard something. I had a flash of inspiration, and here you go. I have all sorts of different occasions or different spots where the unexpected. I guess you can expect the unexpected from folks like these, and it sounds like
Right,
something
right.
similar with you.
Right. So in this case, the first two अंतरास आपने एक अंतरा प्ले किया है मेरे पास पहला अंतरा और दूसरा अंतरा दोनों के ट्यून थे और मैं दूसरा अंतरा मुझे बहुत पसंद है पर्सनली
Mm-hmm.
राइट आई वाज रियली व्हेन आई केम अप विद दैट आई वाज रियली हैप्पी फॉर दैट ट्यून आई डोंट नो इट्स जस्ट अ thing. And then, of course, once he wrote all four antras, one thing he did use in one place a little bit, थोड़ा सा डिस्कशन हुआ और उसमें एक डिस्कशन ये था कि उन्होंने एक वर्ड उर्दू का यूज किया कुर्बत करके एक वर्ड
Mm-hmm.
होता है
Mm-hmm.
जिसका मीनिंग होता है क्लोजनेस और नजदीकी या रिलेशनशिप
Uh-huh.
और वो मोस्ट people don't know the meaning. So I asked him to just requested him to change that, and he was able to change it immediately, and he came back with something totally different.
And
And उनको एक और
wow.
इंस्ट्रक्शन ये थी, सॉरी, एक
No,
और
go ahead. Go ahead.
इंस्ट्रक्शन ये था कि रोमांटिक सॉन्ग तो है लेकिन जो है उसमें आप महबूबा की प्रेज प्रेज करते हुए लिखेंगे सारे अंतरा, लेकिन लास्ट का अंतरा थोड़ा सा एकदम क्लाइमैक्टिक होना चाहिए, ऐसा मैंने उनको बोला था।
Mm-hmm.
और
Mm-hmm.
उन्होंने क्या अंतरा लिखा, वो पहली बारी में जो उन्होंने लिखा मुझे बहुत ही पसंद आया और वही हम लोगों ने इसमें डाला भी है।
Mm-hmm. क्या बात है, क्या बात है. And just to, up to this point, I'll recite the lyrics again. जो मुखड़ा जो है, कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी. एंड अभी जो अंतरा बजाया हमने, मुझको जब तक न तेरी दीद हुई, क्या कहूँ मैं, जो दिल की हालत थी, मर मिटा मैं कि तुझ पे मरना था, जिंदगी एक जरा सी मोहलत थी, तेरे जलवों ने कर दिया रोशन मेरी तकदीर का सितारा भी.
क्या
क्या
बात है,
बात है,
क्या बात
क्या बात है. And this, so we will very shortly go on to play the second antara, which again, I think everybody must have their favorite part of this song, and or favorite parts of this song, and whether it's the tune or the lyrics. And I'll tell you mine when we get to it, or at least one very conspicuously favorite part of the song for me when we get there. But again, those of you just tuning in, you're tuned into Swaranjali Sanjeev ke saath Sangeet ka Surila Safar. We're taking a break from our usual rag-based explorations to talk about a recent project. The song is entitled Kaise Tujhko. It's an original in a classic mold, sung by me, composed by composer R.M. Menon of the Bay Area, and we're getting under the hood, basically talking about our combined attempts to pay tribute to the musical era of Muhammad Rafi Saab with this song, Kaise Tujhko. And I think I'm going to play the second antra now, and we will continue to talk about both the specific spots in the song and then the making of the song and the various facets of it, because it's a really fascinating project that I'm very happy to share with you. But on now to the second antra of Kaise Tujhko Bayan Karu Humdam.
तू अचानक जो पास आ जाए, धड़कने मेरी थम सी जाती है, जब सुलगने लगे ख्याल मेरे, तेरी अंगड़ाइयाँ बुझाती है, तेरे पहलू में इश्क की बाजी, मैं ही जीता भी मैं ही हारा भी, कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी, कैसे तुझको.
क्या बात.
Well, I'm enjoying listening to it, and at the same time, every time I listen to it, I say, agar Rafi Saab ne gaya hota to kya,
कैसे
it's
होता.
just we're chasing the shadows. I think it's he was really something, and but he's what an inspiration. He's continues to be an inspiration, 40 some odd years after he's gone. But again, listeners, we are on Swaranjali today talking about original song in a classic mold created by composer R.M. Menon, who is my guest, and voice of yours truly, Sanjeev Ramabhadran. Bol hai shayad Abhishek Shukla ke. And let's talk about that last antara. Tu achanak jo paas aa jaye, धड़कने मेरी थम सी जाती हैं, जब सुलगने लगें ख्याल मेरे, तेरी अंगड़ाइयाँ बुझाती हैं, तेरे
ओहो, क्या
Whew,
तेरी अंगड़ाइयां हो जाती हैं, वो मेरा फेवरेट लाइन है. वो दोनों लाइन जो आपने
क्या
बोली लास्ट की, अरे. और ये ट्यून मेरा फेवरेट इसलिए है कि दिस इज अ वेरिएशन ऑन द फर्स्ट अंतरा ट्यून. आप पहला जो पहले अंतरे का पहला पोर्शन है, दैट इज एग्जैक्टली द सेम एज दिस वन, राइट. मुझको जब तक ना
it
ये
starts that way,
ये
right? It starts that
हाँ,
way.
it starts at
So
the
you so
exactly
da da. So the first antara goes da 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 da. But here
correct,
da 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 da. Just a little bit
correct,
of playful, some lachak, and
exactly,
we're going up, and then a little bit of drama, right? Da da
correct,
da na na
correct.
na na na, and that thing. Rafi Saab did it like no other. He could scale the peaks and pull out the ripcord and parachute down back into the valley like
So
nobody.
well put, so well put. Very
we,
well put.
we made our attempt at that, and I hope you enjoy the song. And I and please, when you listen to this, don't think think about what Rafi Saab could have done, but don't think too much about what he could have done, because then you won't like what I did.
No, I would say
Anyhow.
you came pretty as close as as we can come. I know Rafi is Rafi, and to be honest, like his voice is different from yours, right? Like that is
Yeah,
really,
that's so
yeah,
this is it's a mold, right? And so we're trying to recreate the feel and
correct,
the
correct,
आवाज तो एक
correct.
ही है, but this is so when we talk about elements of songs of those days, the
जी.
dramatic elements, the contrast, right? That's I think you've all throughout this actually in various places, the contrast was a very powerful element in your mind.
Yes, yes. So like the contrast in terms of you're talking about the tune itself,
Well, the tune
the
and then the dynamic contrast. There are places where, but
yes,
the दमदार आवाज होनी चाहिए, और फिर you have to
जी, जी,
try to modulate वो जो modulation है वो
जी.
and doing it in this setting. It's I think we've all I have certainly, and we have all sung जो रफी साहब के गाए हुए हैं. They have been embedded in our brains for a while, and the roadmap is very clear because he's laid
Yes,
it out, right? But trying to do this
yes.
for a brand new song is a whole different adventure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was so much fun. And, when I came up with this tune, I immediately recorded it, of course, so that I don't forget it, right? From the restroom, when I was taking shower and whatnot. But what interesting thing about this tune and even the previous one, right? You are looking at all the elements of Rafi Saab, right? He goes up,
हम्म,
he comes back to mean जैसा एक होता आता है, वैसे वो नीचे आते हैं।
बिल्कुल।
और जो जिस टाइप के गाने वो गाते थे, लिरिक्स इतने ही सुंदर होते थे। उसमें वाले तेरा जवाब नहीं के लिरिक्स भी बहुत ही सुंदर हैं।
Oh, really? Absolutely, absolutely.
राइट। तो ये वही है और उसमें यही मजा है इसमें, इस सॉन्ग में भी एटलीस्ट कोशिश वही रही है।
Absolutely. And when you and then जो बाकी के बोले, तू अचानक जो पास आ जाए, धड़कनें मेरी थम सी जाती हैं, जब सुलगने लगें ख्याल मेरे, तेरी अंगड़ाइयाँ बुझाती हैं, तेरे
हम्म।
तेरे पहलू में इश्क की बाजी, मैं ही जीता भी मैं ही हारा भी। तो
क्या लिखा
जो
है।
and you can the इश्क की बाजी में and जीता भी हारा भी, तो रफ़ी साहब would have a field day with that sort of thing. So we, you know, we
यस।
again we did what we could. I mean, as you know, your composition and my attempt to bring out that flavor in the voice. But you can see these are all the elements of the songs, of the best romantic songs of that day. And um, the you know, we've talked a little bit about Abhishek Shukla ji, the poet. When we talk about the team of folks creating this, the another very powerful piece of the song is the musical backing, the arrangement, and
एब्सोल्युटली।
uh, your contact with Prakash Peters ji. I think that dates back to previous collaborations, right?
यस। यस, प्रकाश पीटर जी, माय गॉड, क्या आदमी है, क्या इंसान है। सबसे पहले तो बहुत ही एकदम लाइक, मैं उनके साथ दो सॉन्ग्स में उनके साथ बैठ के किया है मुंबई में जाके। जावेद अली के दो सॉन्ग जो हैं मेरे, और वो दे आर, आई लव दो सॉन्ग, राइट? लाइक दे हैव डन वेरी वेल in terms of, they have done very well in terms of not only the song itself but the arrangement is fantastic, and of course Javed Ali ji has taken it to new levels, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
प्रकाश जी के साथ मेरा उस टाइम कांटेक्ट हुआ था। और वो क्या, मुझे उनके बारे में कुछ पता ही नहीं था। जब मैंने उनसे अपना थोड़ा सा बताने के लिए बोला तो तब उन्होंने बताया कि क्या क्या उन्होंने किया है।
Mm-hmm.
तो देयर ही हैज डन अरेंजमेंट फॉर लाइक 90 odd, आई विल टेल यू a few things, 90 odd movies, including हम दिल दे चुके
Some
सनम,
high
and I
profile
don't know this.
movies, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And then he told me, just casually that he has played for Lata Mangeshkar ji for 14 years
Wow.
here and abroad in shows. He sent me a video clipping of a show where they are showing him playing violin. He basically plays violin. Of course, he arranges music also, so he understands a lot more than just violin. And then the other thing he told me, which a normal person will, छत के ऊपर जाके ढिंढोरा पीटने वाली बात है, कि लता जी ने उनको एक घड़ी गिफ्ट दी थी जो उनके पास अभी भी है।
Oh,
तो ये
wow.
बात उन्होंने मुझे बताया। उन्होंने कि मुझे पहले कुछ नहीं पता था क्योंकि वो अपने बारे में ऐसा बोलते नहीं है। तो ऐसे ऐसे एक तो इंसान है, और ऑफ कोर्स एज एन अरेंजर इज वन ऑफ द टॉप अरेंजर्स इन मुंबई राइट नाउ।
I mean, and you know, we talk about the some of the characteristics of the musicians of that day, if we want to call it, you know, of that era that this brings you back to, or is reminiscent of this song. Violinists very frequently. I mean, it's true today too. So there are quite a few violinists amongst the prominent composers. You look no
प्यारे
further
जी।
than Pyare Lal ji, right?
जी।
So he was himself a, you know, it was is, you know, an ace violinist, and that, you know, his he played violin for some very famous songs. In fact, Madan Mohan ji's collaboration with Rafi Saab, मैं ये सोचकर उसके दर से उठा था, that's Pyarelal ji's violin. And so the connection, or the sort of mental wiring between these two, there that sort of connection is quite common. So Prakash ji, again, a prolific musician for, you know, decades in the industry, and we got the
यस।
benefit of his expertise. This collaboration itself, in fact, such a collaboration would not have been possible without somebody of his acumen, because I'm sitting here in New Jersey, you're sitting
यस।
over there in the Bay, and Prakash ji is in Mumbai. So this
यस।
was an entirely virtual collaboration,
यस।
all technology
यस।
based. That the, you know, the way that you were able to sit, you know, with Javed Ali ji, Udit Narayan ji, but the रूबरू जो स्टूडियो में आप
जी। जी।
बैठने को मिला, this was
जी।
under time constraints and things. We, you know, we had a different model for this, and we were able to pull it off in large part because our partners on the other end were both. I mean, the musical acumen is one thing, but the technological acumen was also
यस। यस।
quite
यस,
strong.
वेल दैट्स मोस्टली यू राइट इन टर्म्स ऑफ। हमने रिकॉर्ड किया था। बाय द वे, ये किया है कि मैं अगर आना चाहता था न्यू जर्सी में, लेकिन आपने बोला कि नहीं भाई हमारा वीकेंड है, ये है वो। मैंने कहा
Well,
ठीक है
all
चलो
of
यार।
no, no, of course that is
डिस्को
that's
वगैरह।
but the other truth is that we were able to get more done in that
दैट्स
time.
ट्रू।
We actually did a lot of
ओह
we
या,
were because Zoom
मल्टीपल
and thing again.
इटरेशंस।
I think before the pandemic, this sort of thing would not have been we wouldn't have even thought about doing this. But because
यस,
we got so good at technology during the pandemic, we
दैट्स ट्रू।
we now can leverage a lot of tools, which which means we can do things faster actually too. And you then we have
एब्सोल्युटली।
we can split our bandwidth and so forth. But I digress a bit. Prakash Peters, you just what a find and for us anyway. Of course, he's kitne jaane mane hai industry mein, but for you to have collaborated with him before and for us to have been able to leverage his talents this time,
यस,
he created that musical backing, which
यस,
which really filled out and gave that feel. And
यस।
then the musicians that he assembled, Sanjeev Senji's tabla is wo jo
अरे
theke
क्या
hain,
बात।
jo fills hain, that is a critical part of songs like these. So
जी जी जी।
again, Prakash ji quarterbacking that and finding those musicians that would fill in the way we needed to. What
एंड
a
अरुण जी, वी शुड नॉट फॉरगेट, अरुण जी ने कॉन्गोस और वो
absolutely,
बाकी जो
absolutely,
लाइट रिदम बजाए हैं। और ये संजीव जी और अरुण जी के साथ मैं एक साथ मैंने बात कर रहा था जब उन्होंने रिकॉर्डिंग किया था इसका। तो मैंने उनको यही बोला था, आप भैया जो पुराने हैं वैसा ही ठेका चाहिए मुझे, जैसा पुराना है, जैसा आप ये समझ लीजिए कि रफी साहब का गाना है तो कैसे इस गाने में कैसे ठेका देंगे, आप वैसा ही ठेका
absolutely.
दिए। उन्होंने परफेक्टली वैसा ही दिया। और इसमें आप आपका भी कोलैबोरेशन है संजीव जी, आपने भी इसका पहले वर्जन में अपना तबला बजाया। आप क्या
Oh,
क्या नहीं करते, तबला
thank you.
बजाते हैं, वायलिन बजाते हैं, अब मैं
It's
क्या बोलूं।
thank you. I mean, it does. It certainly it helps to. It gave it some initial shape, and then we were based on what we had learned about the musicians, we knew they would fill it in brilliantly. So at least to give
यस,
it a एक जो skeleton बनाना था वो हमने थोड़ा बहुत बना दिया इस तरफ, but then they took that and ran with it, and then Prakash ji, he we needed some dramatic flourishes in the song, right? Particularly when we get to that fourth antra, he came,
क्लाइमैक्टिक।
he really racked his brains and came up with that, because
यस,
the styles have changed so much over the years, and drama means different things to different folks, right? And even how
करेक्ट।
long it should be. Abhi, when we talked about making the song, Abhi, we'll take a little break right after this, but when we come back from the break, maybe we should talk about the some of the basic parameters of the song. Iska jo sur hai, iski jo lay hai,
जी
and
जी
some of those things. Those that frame of the song is also very important, right? Before you start filling in the details.
जी।
So, radio the listeners, this is Swaranjali Sanjeev ke saath Sangeet ka Surila Safar. We're today talking about the song Kaise Tujhko Bayan Karu Humdam, an original in a classic mold. And we will be back with more Swaranjali right after these messages. Radio the listeners, Swaranjali Sanjeev ke saath Sangeet ka Surila Safar today, taking you on a different journey away from our usual rag-based explorations to explore uh, the making of an original melody in a classic mold. We talk about the golden era of the Hindi film industry when voices like Muhammad Rafi Sahab reigned supreme, and this being his 100th birth anniversary year, a project that I have recently been involved in, and a recent release of a song that we're sharing with you today. And my guest on today's Swaranjali is composer R.M. Menon, who is from the Bay Area. Like me, as I said, not a musician in the professional sense of paying his bills that way. No, we don't do that. But the passion and the zeal have forever been there. And we can't imagine life without music. Menon ji, that and any what else would you like to say about that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. Rafi Sahab was my first love. Right, I was so crazy about him. While walking to school, I will be singing to myself because I was too shy, and my brother's friends will tell him, "Hey, your brother is crazy," because I've seen him talking to himself. So that's how it was.
Yeah, and so it continues. And listeners, those of you who are tuning in late, we have been playing the song Kaise Tujhko in parts today. We have gotten through the beginning and the first two of four antras. Just to give everybody a little recap. And while we're at it, we can just talk for a brief moment about the rag base of this. So, ik hai kamaj. और खमाज के साथ साथ बहुत मतलब एकदम जुड़ा हुआ गारा राग है Da, 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 na, ah, da, 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 na, ah, da, da, da. This sort of hang your hat on that hook. Some of you may call it, we may call it Pancham Se Gara because of the shift of frame of reference, but Kamaj Gara, that neighborhood has given rise to so many classics from the Hindi films, and it is such a beautiful backdrop for a romantic melody like Kaise Tujhko that Menon ji has composed. And I'm going to suggest that we play our third antara and then resume
Yes.
talking about the song and the details. Again, how it came to be. It's a fascinating story. So stay tuned. Here is the third antara of Kaise Tujhko.
रंग खुशबू धनक हया शोखी सबके सब एक तेरे बदन में है तेरा साया नसीब है जिनको हुस्न के दिल नशी चमन में है आशिकों के लिए तो काफी है तेरी नजरों का एक इशारा भी कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम.
And Menonji, we've been talking about how we all, each of us have our favorite parts of the parts of the song, and I think and certainly from a lyrical standpoint, the lines "Rang khushbu dhanak haya shokhi." I had an especially fun time singing those words and then trying to follow that up with the rest of the antara. Husn ke dil nashi chaman mein hai. All these are Rafi Saab's. He could get up नींद से उठकर ये सब मजेदार बातें पेश कर सकते थे, and so we have tried to recreate some of that. But tell us about first this antara, what you had going on in mind, and then we should get back to some of the basics of the song, and even getting it off the ground. Some of the things that we had to finalize.
Absolutely. So in this, I think this antara, because remember, I had only two tunes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I then came up with the final tune, the fourth antara tune. The third
Mm.
antara tune, I was thinking of that I'll put the same as the first one. So there are many songs where that happens, where your first one, then the second one goes to slightly higher notes, which is what happens in my song. And the third one kind of comes back, and then the fourth one just erupts, right? So that was
Right.
the idea. Kind of like that is the case right now also, but as it happens, right, and most of the time we never know this. In this case, you, as you know, contributed to
Ah,
the tune of
that
the third line, I think, of
That's right.
the
That's right. That's right. Because the first two are exactly like M1, and then we you said again you are a master of playing what if, and in this case I said what if we take it up instead of going the way that the first one goes mar mita main ke tujh pe marna tha, sort of heading back towards that bass. If we said tera saya nasib hai jinko, hinting at a little bit of further progress. Maybe the relationship is progressing, maybe other things are
Mhm.
progressing, some hint of that. And then that set us up for da 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 da. Again, our attempt to recreate that parachuting
Rafi
effect
Saab.
that Rafi Saab
Yes.
had. Husn ke dil nashin chaman mein hai.
Yeah.
And again, Abhishek ji's word just I was hanging on every syllable. It's just so much. It's delectable, exquisite. So
Absolutely,
so
absolutely. See, the lyrics का एक meter of how kind of a metric of how good a lyrics is. If you just read it without tune, can you appreciate it, right? That
absolutely.
is where that's one and in this case, if you just read the lyrics, forget about the tune, you will still really appreciate what is written. That's how you can measure the lyrics.
For sure,
Anyway,
for
thank you
sure.
for that. I think, and this also, I would quickly make a comment that, I'm sure many times a singer, even maybe a lyricist or somebody has contributed to the music. And again, it reminds me to again say one more thing, which is music directors, we know R.D. Burman, Shankar Jackson, but we don't know about the arrangers, right?
Right.
Music arrangers, music
That's right.
producers. That's
That's
such a
right.
tragedy. That's a separate topic, but I just wanted to just put that plug in there. But
I mean,
here, for
in
example, you
fact, for like
contributed to the tune. You
that.
contributed to the tune, but your name doesn't come, right? Because you can't put like everyone who contributes
Well,
to the
exactly,
thing, right?
and what 98% X and 2% Y. It's not like a list of ingredients in
Correct, correct,
in
correct.
a food recipe or something, right? But I mean,
But
but you're
it
right.
did add, yeah, it did add something, right? And similarly, I think Rafi Saab contributed to जो
Oh, I'm quite sure,
कौन सा है
quite sure
कौ-
that
कौन सा है वो
and
एक सॉन्ग है वो लाल पत्थर का है शायद नहीं कौन सी कौन सी
oh,
कौन
you have
सा
a
गाना है
specifics?
वो yeah there is a song रवि साहब का रवि और रफी का कॉम्बिनेशन है नॉट लाल पत्थर सॉरी इट्स ऑन राजकुमार एंड
Either Kajal or
अच्छा
Neil Kamal or
ये
something.
जुल्फगर आई थिंक इट्स राजकुमार ये
Oh,
जुल्फगर
Ye Zulf. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, the
हाँ जी
gorgeous
उसमें
song.
जो अच्छा के जो कॉम्बिनेशंस हैं दैट
Oh,
वाज
yes.
सजेस्टेड बाय रफी साहब
I'm sure. Oh, that you're right. You're right. Absolutely. Rafi Sahab, though, and many of these, by that time, Ravi Sahab would have been quite seasoned. So, they were, basically peers and colleagues. But
oh yes
especially the younger, the younger or less experienced set. In fact, I think now, come to think of it, you just reminded me of an interview of Anu Malik Ji's, where he talks about his song with Rafi Sahab. Again, towards the tail end of Rafi Sahab's career, but the song is from the movie Poonam, Mohabbat Rang Laegi Janab Ahista Ahista. And
Mhm.
I think what he says is the way that he was very eagerly he went to Rafi Saab and was he was the son of Sardar Malik Saab
Yes,
who composed for quite a bit for Rafi Saab, and he was very eager to share his tune and have Rafi Saab sing it, and Rafi Saab was very encouraging. Joe, I think what it was the way he said the words ahista ahista. He was young and full of energy, and I think kuch is tarah se he new generation sort of threw it out there, and Rafi Saab said, look, if you want the effect that you're looking for, you really have to throw it like this, and
yes,
that's what made the song. Mohabbat Rang Laegi Janab Ahista Ahista. So, uh,
right.
to your point that right, what you have tidbits of dialogue and exchange and thought partnership that make the song, and in so many different ways. When we start talking about the arrangement, we were in dialogue with Prakashji, who was talking about the different, the instrumentation, and so lots of
Mhm.
exchanges like that. Again, even in our virtual collaboration, we had quite a
Oh
bit of
yes,
cross pollination. So, but getting back to
absolutely.
the original frame, we talked about even we've gone quite deep into some of the details already, but basic things. मतलब इस गाने का मतलब जो का सुर क्या होगा, इस गाने की लय क्या होगी, और जो
जी.
वो शुरुआत कैसे करेंगे. All those things were in your head too, right at the very outset.
Yes,
Tell us about
yes. So
that.
when I decided that I'm going to make this song with Abhishek ji, the first step was to get the lyrics. Once he had done the lyrics, I said, okay, अब तो फंस गया, अब तो बनाना पड़ेगा इसको. तो फिर उसको the way I can sing also, right? So I sang, and initially the the speed of the song was 85 beats per minute, 80,
Mm.
85 BPM.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 80, then 85, then 86, and then 90, and I kept on increasing, and then once you came in, you pushed it all the way to 100. One way to decide that is, obviously in collaboration with the singer, like what sounds good. But in my case, we don't have that luxury because I'm here and you're there, right? So I guess in some ways it depends on, as a singer, I kind of know like how fast one can go, right? So that's why I was kind of keeping it slow to make sure that all the हरकतें जो हो रही हैं वो ठीक
Mm.
से हम जो भी गायक मैं चूज करूंगा उस टाइम एक्चुअली इनिशियली आई वाज जावेद Ali also, but eventually we went to
Right.
you, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
thank God, like we put in so much effort. So
For sure.
हाँ, तो उसमें जो बीट्स पर मिनट जो है वो एक होता है, और फिर ऑफ कोर्स जो जो उसका स्केल है वो कहाँ से क्या रखना है उसमें भी काफी एक्सपेरिमेंट्स करने पड़ते हैं, क्योंकि आपने अगर बहुत ही ऊपर रख लिया तो जब आप बहुत ऊपर जाएंगे अंतरा में तो कई सिंगर्स को प्रॉब्लम होगी, तो
Right.
उसमें फिर आपका कंट्रीब्यूशन ये था कि आपका स्केल तो भैया माशाल्लाह बहुत ही अच्छा है, तो आपने स्केल अपने हिसाब से चेंज किया और उसने गाने को और गाने के ऊपर चार चांद लगा दिए, क्योंकि अगर सही स्केल में गाना गाया जाए तो उसकी बात अलग होती है। उसी गाने को अगर आप दो नोट्स लोअर गाएंगे तो सारा एक्सप्रेशन खत्म हो जाएगा, अनलेस वो सिंगर दूसरा हो। जिनके
That's
ऊपर
right.
वो
That's right. वो
ट्यून।
आवाज के वजन के हिसाब से you have to and all of those absolutely that and so we were stuck with we need to have it be up enough that you've got the drama and low enough that you can have some the if you set it too low also the other thing is then the lower parts will sound a little bit lethargic.
Lethargic, and the expression, basically expression gets killed, right? And to me, I think expression is probably I mean, apart from sur and tal, of course, which has to be there, after that, it's bhav is the main component
Oh, you
of
have
light
and
music.
absolutely, and you have the most potential, right? Because it's again, bhav is subjective, and how you do it, there is no one way, but you have the most potential if you put the song in the right range. Absolutely,
Correct, correct. So those are the few things I'm sure. Yeah, there is another thing which is, should there be humming, right?
right.
So initially the song didn't have humming, and then I thought, oh, okay, maybe we can put humming, and it sounded great when you hum the song in the beginning, and that's another decision you make. Uh, Typically in romantic songs, humming I think makes sense. In a very sad song, humming may not make sense. Alap might make sense. So those are some of the decisions you make as a composer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's uh, yeah, that we could go on about how many talking about decisions to be made. Then we for you listeners, just we Menanji and I spent quite a bit of time. Again, virtually, but it was over Zoom and it was with a harmonium in hand, saying, line by line,
Oh,
word
yeah.
by word, how,
Yes.
what do you have in mind for throwing this word? And Menanji's, again, you're having as much singing experience as you had a very definitive idea of what you wanted, which was a huge help. Otherwise, okay, so it can be open ended, and you could say, well, you could go this way, that way. But as we said earlier, having some constraints, having a
Yes.
definitive idea means that you eliminate unnecessary options or sort of thinking about it when
Right.
and again, we have a little bit of the Muhammad Rafi mold or something, in mind that we both can say, oh yeah, this is congruent, or this is
Yes.
somewhere where it's not, it doesn't really fit that. This is somewhere where it's different, but it's okay. It actually sounds pretty good. And but
Right.
we had something to go on because you had a pretty definitive idea, and so we spent quite a bit of time. And the various iterations we sent back and forth, you would say, okay, this one you can dig a little deeper. You did the modulation, but I even want more of the modulation. And
Yes.
here,
Yes. So
this one,
many. Yeah.
so many different. That itself is another hour long, if not more,
Oh, no, no,
conversation.
it was more than many more hours. We spent our first Zoom meeting was 3 hours, I would say,
That's right.
around two
That's
hours,
right.
40 minutes. Yeah.
That's right. No,
And even
and if
three of those. Yeah.
yeah, so that we have enshrined those in our
The
recording
basic thing
archives.
is that you were able to pull it off, right? Like that's the thing, right? You were able to
I would
understand where I was coming from, right? So that
I think
is
I would
a
say I
great help.
pulled off most of what you were looking for. I still say there are parts where you have there I've done it and I've looked back and said, yeah, he did it a little more. But I think that's another thing that we get to, right, with Rafi Saab. Yes, he delivered so often what the composers wanted, Lataji, but they're all of them, their delivery rate is so high, and yet you
Yes.
always have little instances where the composer says, "Yeah, it was really good, but they didn't get exactly what I wanted." It happens. It
Ji,
happens because
ji, ji.
there are two musical minds, and jitna bhi jitni bhi koshish kijiye aap, there is you get quite a bit of overlap, and then there's spots where now because we could be at this for a long time perfecting even those little spots where we didn't overlap exactly, but
Right,
the show
right.
the show must go on. There has to be the next one, and this is so in so many ways this parallels the experience of all these musicians of the industry in that golden era. So I can't emphasize enough what a fascinating, fun project this has been. um, I think we should go and play our final antra
Yes.
and the climax of the song, and then we can round out our discussion. Again, listeners, radio the listeners, you're listening to Swaranjali, Sanjeev ke saath Sangeet ka Surila Safar, talking today about Kaise Tujhko, an original song in a classic mold, and playing the song recently released on Menon's Melodies YouTube channel. You can check it out there. It's also on Spotify. But Menon's Melodies, composer R.M. Menon is our guest today on Swaranjali. And Kaise Tujhko is a song that we're playing that I rendered. Bol hai Abhishek Shukla ji ke, and it's a beautiful romantic song which has recently been released. And this is the conclusion of it, the last antra and the sort of climactic piece. So sit back and enjoy.
उस दर्द दिल का चारा भी कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम, तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी कैसे तुझको.
And that
Ah,
was the climax of Kaise Tujhko. And the bol hai, again, we keep marveling over Abhishek Shukla ji's lyrics. मेहरबां मेरे तेरी आंखों में ये मेरी कायनात बसती है, तेरा इनकार है फना मेरी, तेरा इकरार मेरी हस्ती है, दिल में उठता है जो वो दर्द भी तू, और उस दर्द का दिल और उस दर्द दिल का चारा भी. What
क्या
a
बात.
way to round out the song. Menon, tell us about this one, and how how this piece came about.
Yeah, so this piece again, I think once I think this piece I came up with the tune after the lyrics. So I told him to write a climactic lyric, Antara, and
Mm-hmm.
then and of course, when you say climax, one guidance, if you're following the standards, is to go higher notes, right? Like
Right.
नौशाद साहब जब climax में जाते हैं तो आप high notes लेते हैं. So that's what I did, and it came out pretty well. And of course, you delivered it fantastic. So
Oh, thank you,
that
thank you.
that's how it
It was
came
it was
about.
fun. It was fun to sing. But going back to the attention to detail, right? That we talked about each word, each letter, almost in some cases. How do we want it, right? So
Yeah.
one distinct memory I have is that we went through a couple iterations with this, right? That we had recorded one and had almost gotten to the point where we were going to release it, and I
Mhm.
listened to it a few times, and I think there is never perfect. You can always do it again, but I was particularly keen on recording it again. And one of the things that was changed, जो जो तेरा इनकार, so
Mhm.
so तेरा इन जो तेरा है, you can sing तेरा इन, you can sing like that, or तेरा इनकार, and I had sung it the first way, तेरा इनकार, the first time. I
Correct.
listened to it again and I said, man, I think, what, really come to think of it, that should not have that slide on it. वो तेरा सीधा आना चाहिए. And
Yes.
to which you
Yes.
immediately said, yeah, absolutely. You're right. If you
Yes.
get a chance to sing it again, we should do it like that. So there are hundreds such examples in this song, but I just figured I'd pull out one because it was especially, the more I listened to that first pass with the slide in it, वो खटक रही थी दिमाग में. I just couldn't
Yes.
get it out of my
Expression.
head.
Yeah. There are two things, right? One, the expression is not as good, and secondly, the इनकार करने के लिए आपके पास समय थोड़ा सा कम रहता है अगर आप
Yes.
तेरह को खींच लें. वो आपके साथ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी वो एक चीज है उसमें. अगर आप इनकार को अच्छे से गाना चाहते हैं तो तेरह को शॉर्टन कर सकते हैं, और तेरह को खींचने का उसमें एक्सप्रेशन वाइज भी मेरे हिसाब से एटलीस्ट जो मेरा
हाँ.
सेंस है वो it doesn't. Yeah, so that was a
But
great suggestion, and thank you for bringing that up.
well, and in fact,
That was
I
awesome.
now come because I don't think in fact you had sung it this way when you first showed me the thing. I don't know if that slide was there. I may have introduced it
It
unwittingly, right?
wasn't there.
It wasn't there,
Yes.
right? So then I said I don't think that's how he intended it. And again, there are so many things to keep track of, right? But then, this is an example of, and abhi jo point aapne raise kiya, I like to call it long and short, right? One of the things that these singers all did so well, Rafi Saab ho, but the Kishore da, Lata ji, Asha ji, sabhi, they had roadmaps on where to breathe and jahan kahan lamba karna hai, kahan chota karna hai, shabd ko. So
Yeah.
they were not triathletes that they went to gym नहीं जाते थे हर रोज कि इतना दमसास को बढ़ाएं और उस तरह से. They were very smart, very
Mhm.
intelligent about where to and the notes that they would take were meticulous about where they would want to breathe, where they would want to make things longer and shorter, because when you speak those words, or if you do it strictly in meter, then there is a uniformity to it, which actually may not be prudent when you actually go try to sing it. And
Yes.
so many of us do. I mean, we have heard Rafi Saab, Mukesh Ji, Kishore Datta. If we talk about male singers, Talat Saab, all of them, we have gotten used to. We have assumed that the template aisa hi hai. But if you go
Mm.
back to the beat and where the words would fall beat ke hisab se, it's not
जी.
necessarily like that. They have massaged it in a way
Yes.
that makes it more comfortable to sing, more pleasing to hear. And so all that these are all the things that in a brand new song, we ended up having to figure that out ourselves.
Oh, one of the things I know that we are a little bit out of time, but remember how we have to figure out how to sing कैसे तुझको बार बार हम कैसे उसको
Oh
डिफरेंट
man,
करें. वो भी एक अलग था और उसमें एक दो वेरिएशंस नहीं आ पाए हम क्योंकि we
that's
were
right.
out of time because we had done too many
Oh,
rounds.
that was one place where, yeah, there was no end to, we could think of more. And again, if you think about what they would have done, those singers of that time,
Oh
they would have come
yes,
with so many different variations. The other truth is the paradigm then was different, right? Because there was no punch in, punch out, there was no multi-track
yes,
recording,
yes,
so they rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and they also didn't have day jobs besides this is what they did all
sure,
the time, right?
sure,
So
sure.
but that shows in those songs. So we did we did our level best with all the various constraints and the competing priorities we have, but it has been such a joyful experience to do this. And again, listeners, you can hear the song in its entirety on Menon's Melodies YouTube channel. कैसे तुझको बयां करूं हमदम तू जो शबनम भी है शरारा भी, अभिषेक शुक्ला जी का लिखा हुआ, RM मेनन जी का कंपोज किया हुआ और संजीव रामभद्रन का गाया हुआ. And another a star cast of musicians behind us: arranger Prakash Peters ji, Arun ji, Sanjeev ji, tabla par congos pe. That the list goes on. You can find out about all of them on the YouTube link as well.
Video.
So on the video. So please check it out. And Menon ji, I think this is again, you are prolific with ideas, and even in the Rafi Saab mold, you have more to come. So I'm going to say that there are more that are brewing in the back of your mind. So can listeners expect to stay tuned for more in the future?
Yes, I do hope so. There are lots of constraints, but I'm definitely. I mean, I have several tunes. So the question is which one and when. So that's the only thing. So hopefully, at least one more before the December 24th, which is when this giant was born, right? Like giant but
That's
small
right.
but huge personality.
Absolutely. Yes. Again, listeners that may not be aware, this is the 100th birth anniversary year of Muhammad Rafi Saab, 1924. This is 2024 and December 24th. So 24 figures in a few times here. So we have released Kaise Tujhko. We are hoping to get some more stuff out before we get to that milestone. But Menaji, I want to thank you very much for joining me today on Swaranjali. What a rich discussion we had about this song, and look forward to visiting again. When we've got another one to talk about, and all the best for all of your efforts. And it's been such a pleasure collaborating with you.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. And it's the same at my end. I think initially it was just as a singer, right? But you collaborated and you have contributed so much, right? You have done the audio mixing and mastering too. So you have done way more than what I was expecting, and I think you were a thorough, dedicated professional, much more than what I was expecting from anyone, not just you, right? Like so
So thank you. I thank
I'm
you so
not.
much.
The third word iteration was entirely your idea, right? I mean, we had gone with okay, and it did improve the song quite a bit,
I think
including the
so.
example that we did.
I think so. Yes. And so again, yeah, that it was a great learning experience. Again, even if you have heard Rafi Saab do his thing so many times, when you in uncharted territory try to bring back any of that flavor,
Yes.
it's a whole different challenge. And I'm so glad that we've got folks like you with again it's a musical persuasion वो भी चाहिए ना, because anybody can make a song, but जिस चाहत से आपने
Yes.
बनाया और देखा रफ़ी साहब, मतलब जितने क्लोजली आपने इनको इसके स्टाइल को देखा, बहुत कम लोगों में है वो बात. That just really was a pleasure to do this, and hope we can get another one going before too long. So,
Likewise, Sanjeev. Thank you so
so
much for inviting me
absolutely,
over.
absolutely. So, radio listeners, this concludes our episode of Swaranjali today. You can hear us every Sunday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern on Radio Dil, live on the web at www.radiodil.com, 732-800-1008 on the phone, and on mobile apps around the world. For now, this is Sanjeev Ramabhadran for Swaranjali. Namaskar.